Hello everyone and welcome back to Let's Play another Metroid 2 Remake. In the last part, we finished off the distribution center after fighting Zetas and getting the ice beam. And now, if you can't tell by the video title, we are going to go finish the game off. We still have a bit to go through. Technically 3 areas, but after the distribution center, all the areas in the game are much smaller and don't have nearly as many collectibles. In fact, there are less than, looking at the totals up top right now, 8 items in the game. I won't say how many less than 8, but there's less than 8. It's also around now that we start getting some, the research team area where we fought those 2 alpha Metroids. We're going to get a bit of the beaten path area in order to progress. Thankfully, it's more story relevant, though, as we'll see. At this point, though, there's nothing really in your way. All the areas at this point in the game are just mostly straight pathways with no real variation of exploration, just because there's nothing you can really do. And also, those 2 things chasing after me is actually kind of terrifying. We can't go left because there's a thing in the way, so we're just going to head up north. 1 Metroid in the area. Alright, let's go take care of it. Ow. Let's see what we got in this long-ass room. Oh, hey, an alpha. And I believe this is actually our last alpha in the game. Nothing really special about it. In fact, it didn't even attempt to attack me. Alright, let's head back down there now that we got that lava out of the way. Alright, here we are. The lava's higher than it used to be. That's not good. Scanning environment. Another Metroid's in the area. Okay, this has always been weird to me, even in the original game. That room with the alpha that we were just in, now we're back in now, has a route opened on top because of this. I've always found this kind of stupid in terms of design. But I understand why they did it, so you can be surprised, like, what? Either way, let's see where this leads to, I guess. The Omega Metroid, the apex predator of SR-388. The Omega Metroid exhibits devastating strength, and impact from its claws can severely cripple or kill large animals, while the most heavily armored prey are flung into the air. Despite its towering figure, it can leap and use its weight as a weapon. Glance in the mouth ignite its saliva, turning it into an organic flamethrower. Its membrane has greatly thickened. Maximum firepower is strongly recommended. This is the final stage in a Metroid's life cycle, and very few manage to reach it. Its size is a result of the prior form's muscles rapidly expanding to massive proportions. And like with the Zeta, it's kind of a combination of the Metroid from Fusion and the original Metroid 2 in terms of its pattern and clearly design. And it can also knock you out of rooms because the knockback is so big. Also, fun fact, the soldiers that killed in this room are actually a visual reference to Federation Force in terms of their colors. There was a yellow one, a red one, a blue one, and a green one. Also, fun fact, one of them's carrying Anthony's plasma cannon from Other M. The Omega Metroids, though, like in the original game, I think are easier than the Zetas. They're more annoying than they used to be because their back is still, while it's still their weak point, it's only available when they jump. I believe if you hit them in the back, it does either double or triple damage. They take 35 missiles in 1.1, which was changed from 1.0. In the 1.0 version of this game, they took 40. They're kind of annoying, but they're not that bad in the long run. Super missiles are the way to go, though, just because it takes less ammo. And here we have the rescue team. The search and rescue team was an elite combat group consisting of heavily armed soldiers. Their mission? Locate and extract any surviving personnel from the missing research team. There are no survivors among the search and rescue team. Well, if anything, that means they survived fairly long. Though that Zeta probably killed most of them. But the lava just below is now lowered to its lowest, so now we can progress on to basically the last area, quote-unquote? It's the area that has the last major Metroids. That's for a fact. Because SR-388, in total, in either version, kind of becomes even more linear after the tower area or the distribution center. Mostly just because there's not much else they really thought to do with it. Which is understandable, because you can't have stage design forever. You will eventually run out. So, Also, fun fact, another thing that would have been added in a later update is that there would have been a cutscene of an Omega Metroid eating a Ceres, which was intended to communicate their superiority as a species. That never happened, sadly. There was also supposed to be, I believe, a cutscene of a Federation Force mech, the thing to control Federation Force, fighting the Omega Metroid, which would have been a direct reference to Alien. But that never happened. I really do wish this game got those future updates, because it would have been interesting to see what they would have done, especially in terms of more gameplay balancing, but things happen. I'm just glad the game's in as good of a state as it is. Also, I don't like this room because this room has basically no reason to exist in terms of all the obstacles that are in your way. I guess it's there to kind of be if you somehow got here without all these abilities, go back, but I don't think there's a way you can do that. Outside of maybe the New Game Plus that was originally supposed to be in the game, but Also, charge up a Shine Spark and charge up right about here. And you skip about 6-7 rooms. There's nothing in those rooms, don't worry. Either way, welcome to the quote-unquote final area. This is where the last 3 Metroids are. And there is a log entry for this area. It's called the Nest. But I actually forget to read it on footage, so I'm going to be reading it aloud right now. The Nest. This area is infested with thick, globe-like masses composed mostly of crystallized carbohydrates. Those that have yet to harden are constantly moved by the airflow created from the slightest motion of nearby creatures. Only the most adaptable life forms can thrive in this ecosystem. I don't remember why I forgot to read that in the footage, but I did. But as for why I call it the Omega Corridor, well, you see those 3 Metroids in the top right? Well, they're all Omegas, and I'm speeding up each one of them by roughly 250% just because this is the longest part of recording, and I just want to speed it up ever so slightly. The fights are all the same, just the fact that I kind of suck during some of them. Try to aim for the backs if you can, just because you do roughly triple damage, so that's really good. And that means you can basically kill an Omega in 3 hits. But otherwise, just try not to take too much damage. If you do end up taking a lot of damage, you can just head back to the bottom of the initial shaft, where there's a save point. In fact, I'm going to go use that right now, just so I can have some super missiles saved up. But this place can be kind of annoying. Also, this is probably the most Zebes-like area we see in the entire game, because I think the tile set here is just a recolored version of some of Norfair's tiles from Zero Mission. Which is probably why this area always kind of sticks out of my mind for some reason. Thinking about it, I think also... I call this place the Omega Corridor still just because of the 3 Omega Metroids. But I think this is also the most accurate to the original game. Because I don't think they changed the stage design here at all, really. They may have changed the pathways leading to the Omegas slightly, but I think in terms of just like pure stage design on the map, it's like almost entirely faithful. But you know, I guess if we're gonna keep it something the same for a game, I guess keep it the end game, because that's what people remember the most at times. This was probably my best fight with an Omega Metroid because I killed it in like 3 shots. But still, I wanted to speed it up because I think initially this part was like 28 minutes and that was a bit too long for this. And I didn't want to split it up into 2 parts because it's one recording, and why would I do that if it's not like a live game with Scott or someone? So, I recommend saving this pathway for last, though. Why? You're going to come across a hole in the floor right there. That leads to where the lava is currently. And if I went down there, if I went this way first, I'd have to go out of my way to come back here in order to progress, and this is just me saving a bit of time. And with this, if I recall correctly, we shall have killed all of the Metroids on SR388. I believe if we check the total, there is only 1 Metroid left, I think. Either way, we're nearly done here, so let's get the hell towards the end game. Really like this song, though. It's more atmospheric than it is catchy, I will openly admit that, but it's the right kind of atmospheric. It's nice and foreboding, because at this point, we are very deep in SR388. But that's not going to be that way for much longer, because if you actually pay attention to our overall map direction, we are actually heading closer to the surface in most of these rooms than we are heading downwards. There's a game design reason for that on the map, but it's kind of weird. Oh. I don't know if there's a Shine Spark place for you to Shine Spark there that'll actually let you get all the way up. I think if there is, it's probably on the left, and you'll hit that last block there. And now for a just really weird area and design in general. In these rooms, if you ever see a place that looks like a hole on the floor, like those beneath the waterfalls, you can more often than not fall right through them to the room below. Why? It's implied visually that those holes are what the waterfalls are on the previous floors, like the one right below me now. That would be a waterfall. That one below me right now is a waterfall, as is that one. Which I guess works, but this place has always just confused me from a game design standpoint, even the original Metroid 2. Because this is just a lot of back and forth for no real reason. I guess it's there to be even more foreboding because we're coming towards Endgame, but eh. Either way, you notice I say we're coming towards Endgame, but we still aren't 100%. If you're paying attention to the totals, Metroid games have 250 total missiles. We have not used a missile yet, so we're one missile tank short. And if you paid attention earlier, I have exactly 18 super missiles and 18 power bombs. That's one of each of the main 3 items missing. Don't worry, I did this intentionally. Because here in this main corridor, this is where towards Endgame was in the original Metroid 2. We want to get towards the central top in this room. In the original Metroid 2, there were enemies to help as platforms all around, and there were also 3 passageways for you to go up. One led to a recharge station, one led to a power-up, a secondary ice beam, in case you didn't have it already, because Metroid 2 used the item swapping instead of the item stacking mechanic, and one that actually led towards Endgame. However, in 1.1, they added this room. This is not here in the original 1.0, if I recall, and what it is a shortcut back to, if you look at the map, the Hydro Station. This is the one area I didn't get every item in because I knew it would be faster for me to wait to come back here now. So now we're going to hear a bit of my favorite Super Metroid song remixed again and go after the last item. You might remember I was in this upper part of the corridor earlier on. You couldn't do anything in this room because we didn't have the electrical balls unlocked. This is actually where I first went to when I got these electric orbs unlocked in the game, my first playthrough. Purely because, for some reason, this is the one that stuck in my mind the most. Mind you, if I recall, it's also the first time... Wait, no, you see one of these in one of the little goals for these things in the Golden Temple. Never mind, I forgot about that one for a second. And this one can actually be kind of annoying to get into because you do need to make it bounce, but if you're smart with how your bounces work, you should be just fine. And that unlocks the door up here, which is, if I recall, just another Shine Spark puzzle, kind of. But they throw in this twist right there. What you have to do there is, if I recall, just do a jump shot super missile at the Chozo block out of the 3. Because if you screw up, you cause the 2 super missile blocks below you to screw up, and therefore you can't use your Shine Spark. That is kind of specific, I'm not going to lie, but it's not too annoying. And doing so gets us our last super missile. And as for the last missile tank and power bomb, it's in a room we've already been to. You might remember in this this area's version of the, breeding grounds, there was a giant room where we fought an Alpha Metroid in, like an unnaturally large room. I think it's just to the southwest of me right now. Yes, it is. That's our goal right now, because there is one block in the ceiling that's also a speed booster block. You could potentially have found it earlier, because you have this, if you're being smart, you're probably checking all the walls anyway when you have the spider ball your first playthrough. But there is a way to conveniently tell where it is. It's that weirdly different block on that platform I was just on. So, charge up a Shine Spark, get ready, and weep! And there's our last power bomb and our last missile tank. But I'm going to place the power bomb now just so I can get to that quicker. And with that, that's every item in the game. If you've been playing along, you should have 10 energy tanks, 250 missiles, 20 super missiles, and 20 power bombs. If you don't, that means you likely missed something along the way. There are images on the internet of the full map of this game in one giant image with the items placed on them. So if you are having trouble, just look at your map and compare the two. That's how I actually found the last super missile in my first playthrough. Because you might remember, near where we first got the super missiles in the industrial complex was the last super missile was the last item I got in my first playthrough. And I basically gave up looking for that thing because I went through the entire map, power bombing every room 3 times. And I was at almost 8 hours of gameplay time. And I was getting tired of looking for it, so I just decided to say, screw it. Mind you, I'll get into this more in a moment, but percentage doesn't really do anything in this game. It was going to, as I mentioned before, do the extra ending images, but in 1.0 and 1.1, it doesn't matter. Also, in here, nice little detail, this is actually where you got the second ice beam in the original Metroid 2. For us, though, it's just here to be foreboding. This is also foreboding music, isn't it? That's an egg. 9 Metroids. Ugh. Well, good news is about these Metroids, they're babies. Same thing applies from every other Metroid game. Ice Beam, then 5 missiles or 1 super missile. I prefer the super missile route because more often than not, they will drop whatever you don't have in terms of items, and that usually includes super missiles. This is the genetics laboratory, however. Suspended above an abandoned city, there are the remains of a laboratory. Scanners confirm there is extremely sophisticated equipment to be found, along with scientific data of incalculable magnitude. Only stasis tanks are left. Organic traces within suggest genetic research in DNA manipulation. Biogenic substances of an unknown age coat the laboratory's walls. So basically, this is where Metroids were created by the Chozo. In fact, I mentioned it before, but there was, I forget where it was supposed to be, but there was an implied log in that was going to be added to the game where they say they released the Great Protectors because, you know, the X-Parasites, they're the natural predators made by the Chozo. It's how it is. Oh, and these crystals are here. That's interesting. This is probably the easiest Metroid fighting sequence in the series, though, because you can really always have a Metroid an easy aim of yourself due to the fact that he added the other M gravity effect to the Ice Beam. So it's honestly surprisingly easy, though this room's a nice little Zero Mission reference, the bomb floor that falls out under you. There's still 1 Metroid left, however, and if you've played Other M or the original Metroid 2, you know which one it is. Notice the slight music transition. I actually really like that detail. In fact, I like this song in general. It's one of my favorites in the game, because it's the final boss theme against the Queen Metroid. The only Metroid organism naturally capable of producing offspring. The Queen is the heart of the species and the mother of every Metroid born on SR388. Her role in the hive has hindered her mobility, yet encouraged the development of a long neck and massive head to strike at a distance. Her stealth structure indicates she is heavily aged, possibly as old as the lab she is settled in. The years have reinforced her torso to impenetrable levels. The Queen's genetic coding is distinct from the other Metroids, and she may have gone through a unique life cycle to attain her form. So basically, she's probably the original Metroid. And the Queen has had a slight pattern change from the original game. She still does the 2 to 3 head jabs, then she backs up and does a little, whatever those things are, puke. However, this time we can actually freeze them with our Ice Beam and use them to pick up collectibles. Best strategy, spam super missiles and then missiles. It's honestly still a very easy fight. There was an intended update to be added later on that would increase her patterns and do stuff that would be like pounding the floor to make stuff fall from the ceiling, implying that she's the one causing the earthquakes and such, though. Every now and then, once you reduce her health by a certain amount, she will enter the next phase, which causes her to blow a fireball at the wall, destroying it, changing the pattern slightly. Like now, she'll only go for an upper and lower headshot, then she'll still do the old green thing, puke stuff. It's weird. Honestly, it's a really easy final boss. Pathetically easy, honestly. I think the original Queen Metroid is harder than Metroid 2. Music, though, is better, because I actually really like the song. The only advice I can give you is, whenever she goes into the little puke phase, charge up your beam so you can get stuff from the items. I believe you can also still screw attack into them like you're recommended to do in the original Metroid 2, but I don't like to do that because I like to get the pickups. And I should mention they will only drop the pickups if you freeze them, so you can only do this if you have the Ice Beam. If you skip that, you're not getting power-ups in this fight. Which, sucks to suck. I'm not sure if power bombs damage her, but I do recommend having at least one. There was also a rumor that she was going to have another, like this fire breath attack right here, she would be able to use it as a normal attack, but, nothing ever came from that. Once you're here, you're almost done. This is what I consider the last main phase of the fight. After this phase, you can do one of 3 things in the next parts. Spam her with missiles, use normal bombs, or do what I'm going to do, and that's a nice little reference to Other M in of itself. Really, just spam missiles and watch out on your health, and you should be fine. It's it's like uninteresting boss fight. I do have fun with this fight, but it is very simple. I will say that for a fact. Really good animation on her, though. Really cool looking. And that's all I have to say. I should mention, though, whenever she goes into her back up and puke phase, you know she's invincible whenever that top of her head is flashing. Either way, let's finish this fight off, shall we? Let's get over here so I can blow you up. Oh, crap, a dead end. Hi. How are you? Gonna eat me? Alright. Get away from her, you bitch. If you go the route of killing her with missiles or normal bombs when you're in her mouth there, she just does the normal enemy explosion effect, and it's really anticlimactic. But if you go the power bomb route, you get that, and that is very satisfying. Either way, that should be all Metroids eliminated, but there's still one left. Huh. Oh. It's Squidgy! Ah! Squidgy is reborn. They actually use the exact same sound effects. And at this point, it's just an escape. It's nice and relaxing. Though I just realized, I didn't think about this before, I realized the detail they added in terms of the Metroid counter. They mentioned that the Queen's genetic code is different in her file. That's why she doesn't show up on the Metroid scale, on the Metroid counter. That's really clever, actually. Huh. Either way, the game's basically over. Let's take Squidgy and go out and be adorable. Though the last bit of future update content I will talk about was that there was originally a planned post-credits sequence that never got added to the game. It involved these crystals here. Particularly, I think it was the ones in that one room with the Metroids we fought earlier. Basically, after the credits, it would show that these things are crystallized X-parasites. One would liquefy again and infect a Hornode, which is a reference to the beginning of Metroid Fusion. But nothing ever came from that. Oh well. I'm just glad this game got released in the state it did. Once we get back to our ship, we are good, and thankfully, and very conveniently in terms of the structure of the planet, this pathway leads right to where our ship is. I never understood that from a world-building point. That's really strange that there's just a convenient passageway to the left of where we started. And I think it is possible to get over here when you start the game if you wall jump very carefully, but I'm not entirely sure about that. Once you get back to your ship, it's game over. Though a nice little graphical detail never got to show off. If you come back to the surface throughout the game, the background changes. And my favorite one is this nighttime one, because that's just really pretty looking. Either way, guys, let's board this ship and end this marathon, shall we? And ladies and gentlemen, that is another Metroid 2 remake. It's fantastic, especially if you're a real good Metroid fan. It is a bit beginner antagonistic though in my eyes, because even on normal mode, on your first playthrough, this game can and will kick your ass. But I still think it's really good. Whenever I play Metroid 2, I come back to this version because they just made it really solid. The stage design's well done, the bosses are really interesting, and it's just a much more interesting version of SR388's world. The original Metroid 2 still has some merit, I won't lie, but this is just better. If you want to play it, it's on Windows, Mac, and Linux. However, you need to torrent it nowadays because of the DCMA that took down the official download link. So, depends on whether or not you want to do that, if it's worth it or not. And like other Metroid games, this does have multiple ending images. However, due to the DCMA, ones that depend on your endgame percentage don't exist. It's entirely based off your endgame time. There are 3 of them. I'm getting the middle one because I was just 8 minutes too slow. One of them is over 4 hours of gameplay time, which is Samus and Squidgy running around on the surface. And the best one is under 2 hours, which is Samus in a very Zero Mission looking outfit, with Squidgy in her ship, starting a communications line with the Ceres station from the beginning of Super Metroid. And the one we're gonna get, well, it's cute, I guess. And Memory of Satoru Iwata. I teared up when I read that the first time, I'm not gonna lie. But that's it for the Metroid mini marathon. 100% done, and it's good to see it. I recommend this game. It's really good. 8 minutes too slow. God damn it. Next up for the channel, we're taking a brief reprieve from my original plans because I had Scott over and recorded something with him, and then we're going to go into another mini marathon of a certain Capcom series. See you guys next time. Whatever that Metroid game I play next is, I'm sure I'll have fun with it. Have a great night, and take care, everyone. See you next mission.
The last Metroid is in captivity. The galaxy is at peace.
Many months later.
All right. What's the... No. No way. No, it can't be. Did they finally... There's no way. I know that song. Oh my god! Yes!
20 minutes later.
Alright, why'd Jordan send me this? Wait, is that a Hornode? Holy shit! 2 of them? No way. Oh my god, she has a turtleneck. Oh, that's all sorts of cool. Wonder what kind of game this is. Wait, that's... No way. They're doing it? An official remake? Yes! What the... What? A melee attack? Cool! Cinematic stuff during the Metroid stuff by the looks. Grapple beam. Oh, so they're bringing in some of the Super Metroid. Oh, the Omegas look so cool. Oh, I need this in my life. When is it coming out? That soon? Oh, he is. Okay, so E3 of this year was unexpected, to say the least, for Metroid fans like myself. 2 games, one a new entirely Prime game, and a final official remake of Metroid 2. And, well, considering what I said during the credits, I ended up kind of slapping myself a bit over that, because I was not expecting this at all. And I'm adding this in to kind of give my thoughts on Samus Returns in general, before I eventually do an LP of the game way later down the road. Samus Returns, I think, is a very strong remake of Return of Samus. I do have some minor issues with it, but I'll go over that as we go. First off, as a remake, I do think it's successful in the fact it does what I think a remake should. Keep things the same enough, the fact that to the point where it's identifiable as the original game, but add enough new in that it's a new experience on its own, similar to the freaking Resident Evil remake on GameCube, Mega Man powered up on PSP, things like that. I do think I like what they did with the Metroids to make them all a bit more threatening, but I think they went a bit overboard on the threat factor in general with the world, because the damage output from a lot of enemies is ridiculous. I'm talking like early Sector 2 and Metroid Fusion, kind of ridiculous, where those bugs did like half of your health at times. The damage is ridiculously high throughout the entire game, and it's kind of stupid. Hard mode is a bit worse with it, if I recall as well. The Aeon power-ups are interesting, though I only ever found myself using the one to help reveal the map, because I think the armor one was only really useful for Metroid fights or the new boss fights. The rapid-fire burst one that could destroy certain obstacles, there we go, I only really found useful for that, and the time slow one was very situational, because I only used that for getting the 100% items. Which, thankfully, I can say for a fact, they made item collection a lot more interesting in this, because there's a lot more all over the place, as well as some new ones along the way. One thing I do like that they did is they added a lot more original boss fights, and they are good. But when I say a lot more, I only mean like 2 or 3. I do think the game could have benefited from a few more original boss fights just to make it stand out a bit more from the original, because one of my biggest issues with the original Metroid 2, and something I think AM2R did really well, was a lot more new boss fights. Similar to Zero Mission, there's a section at the end of the game that wasn't there to begin with in Metroid 2 or AM2R for that matter, obviously. And I think that section is cool, but I don't think it's as expansive as the actual Zero Mission in Zero Mission. And to be frank, I don't think they could have done something as easily in the world of SR388, so I'll give them credit for what they did, but it's not as interesting to me. With that said, though, as a remake, I think it is as equal in quality, if not a little better than AM2R. I'm not sure which one I'll go back to more often down the road, mostly just due to the fact that I've only played each 2 or 3 times each, 100% playthroughs each time. And it'll take a few more years for me to finally say which is the better remake, be it fan or official. However, if you are a Metroid fan, I do recommend going out of your way to get it because there is a lot of interesting stuff to do. It sucks that some of the stuff is actually hidden behind amiibo, namely some concept art, and I think the game's hard mode you can get through, I think it's the Samus Returns Samus amiibo. And Amiibo also can make the game a bit easier because they give you reserve tanks in a way that'll completely restore either, or not completely, like give you a certain amount of missiles back or energy tank. It's weird. But I do think it is a good game at the end of the day. With that said, though, now my LP of AM2R is concluded, technically speaking, 7 months after it originally concluded, because the original video was recorded in April of 2017. This remake was revealed in June of it, and I'm uploading it in November. In fact, I'm recording this about a week before it gets uploaded. But yeah, that's my thoughts on Samus Returns. Go get it if you have a 3DS. I can highly recommend it. Thank you guys for watching. Have a great night, and take care.